So what is it like being a sign language interpreter? You may be a student, you may be an employer, you may be a teacher, you may be in some situation where you're going to hire an interpreter or you're an aspiring interpreter. What's it like? As a freelance interpreter, just to give you an example. In the morning, they could be in a hospital ER interpreting for a deaf patient. During lunch, they may be at an all-hands meeting for employees, and in the afternoon, they could be off to school, all right? Today in this video, I want to give you some insight into what it's like being an ASL interpreter so you've got a better picture of the challenges they face and what it really takes for a successful interpreting experience. Okay, so let's give you a scenario to see if you can identify some of the challenges interpreters face. Some of the challenges that you might apply in your own situation, or if you're a student or an interpreter, some of the things that you need to be thinking about. What has to come together? At the end of the video, I'm going to give you a framework that, if used, will greatly increase your odds of success in any interpreting situation. Okay, so for the scenario, we're heading off to school. We're going to be interpreting 9th grade biology, and yes, you guessed it, today is dissection day. Okay, for this really to be effective, you may want to close your eyes. You're walking in that classroom. You open the door. What are the smells? You remember formaldehyde if you ever did any dissection back in school? What are the smells of the specimens, the formaldehyde, the students, the classroom with chemicals and all kinds of objects going on, just being in a classroom itself, just being in a junior high? Okay, what are all the smells that are assailing your senses? What are the sounds? I have the sounds of my student that I'll be interpreting for. What about the other students? Are they even wearing masks? And if so, what does that do to all the muffled ambient conversations that are going on? Is there a fan going on? What are all the sounds that are going to challenge me and compete for my awareness as I'm interpreting for my student? How about the teacher? Have I met him before? Do we have a relationship? How do they teach? All right, how about terminology? Now, maybe if you were a pre-med, all of this terminology is going to be no problem whatsoever. If you were a business major, maybe not so much. If you're stumped with the word, now what do you do? Now, in this scenario, our deaf student, she's deaf, okay? We'll be interpreting for her as she has been given the assignment to lead small groups. In her group, she's the designated leader. She has to teach the other students the process, the rules, the instructions for the dissection. She's got a textbook in front of her going through the process. The teacher might be given additional instruction while doing it. She will then have to gather up feedback from her teammates and present it to the entire class. Wow! You're probably feeling a little bit of pressure. Can you identify this kind of a situation in your own scenario? And how are some of these things going to challenge the interpreter? So you feeling a little intimidated? Perhaps a little exhausted? You should be. But this is some of the challenges that interpreters face day in, day out, business, school, medical, legal. It's a wonderful challenge to be an interpreter and to bring to bear all of your talents, right, to ensure a clear, effective communication experience. So as promised, let's talk about the success framework. Now, the framework I'm going to reference is found in this book here. I'll put a reference, okay, or a link down in the notes. This is the Demand Control Schema. Okay, it's written by Dean and Pollard. Again, there'll be a link down at the bottom. In that book, they create this framework that I think if any interpreter uses, their chance for success just goes off the chart. What we'll be talking about today is what's called EIPI. It stands for environment, interpersonal, paralinguistic, that's a tough word, we'll talk about that for sure, and intrapersonal. Let's go through these 4 parts of the framework to see how they can help you be a great interpreter, or if you're hiring an interpreter, help everybody come together with the right assets for a successful interpreting experience. So EIPI, the first one is environment. These are all the physical aspects that are going to happen in the room, in the situation, that you got to think through before you get there. All right? You could do this. Students, classroom, how noisy is it going to be? How crowded is it going to be? How much movement is there going to be going around? Okay? What's the goal? All right? In this situation, it is helping the students learn how to dissect the pig, but more importantly, what are the organs, right? What's the biology involved? So thinking about the goal of the interpreting session, really, really important. That's E, environment. Okay? Next, we have interpersonal, I-N-T-E-R, interpersonal. This is the relationship, what's going on here between everybody. All right? Most importantly, right, the interpreter and the student in this case, right? What's our relationship? Do we know each other? Do I understand where she's coming from? How best she likes to, the signing to go for her? What about the teacher? Do I have a relationship with that individual? What about all the students? What if the students are going to come up to me and ask for questions or help or leadership, and I'm supposed to be doing the interpreting, right? Interpersonal. Next, we have paralinguistic. It's a long word. This just talks about language. Let's think about the teacher for a second. Does the teacher have an accent? Does the teacher talk really, really fast or really, really slow? Right? What about the student? Does the student have access and understand all the terminology that's going to be happening? Right? So thinking through this helps me to understand how best to interpret for that deaf student. Intrapersonal, I-N-T-R-A. This is a big one that we really underestimate as interpreters. What's going on inside of me? What's in my head or what's in my thought world? All right? When I walked in, did the smell of formaldehyde, did it take me back? Good experience or bad experience? When I looked at those baby pigs on the table, what was my reaction? Was I thinking the poor baby pigs, did it bring me to tears? Okay? Or was I thinking bacon? All right? What are all the things going on? Am I having a good day? Right? Am I positive toward the situation? Did I wake up energized and excited? Or do I have a cold? Am I not feeling very well? Doing some self-analysis. Here's the sign for that, by the way, right? Pulling apart the layers of me and understanding my reaction to the environment, the situation, other individuals, the terminology, the dissection, helping me understand and compartmentalize those things will really, really aid in this interpreting. Okay, so EIPI. Walk through this before you come to the interpreting assignment. Be prepared, think through how are you going to react. Really, really is going to help you as an interpreter. And again, if you're hiring an interpreter, you being a partner, part of the team with these interpreters, thinking through this framework, okay, it's going to all really come together for a much, much better experience. Well, I hope that scenario was helpful. I hope it gave you a little bit of insight into what it feels like as an interpreter approaching an assignment. So either as an aspiring interpreter, you're somewhere along that interpreting journey, or you're perhaps an employer or another individual who hires interpreters. I hope that was helpful. Would you do me a favor? Would you please subscribe to the channel? If you know other folks who are wanting to learn more about what it's like to learn American Sign Language, ask them to do the same. We're really committed to creating videos that provide value. So along that, if you've got a question about how to sign something or a situation or a scenario, drop me a note in the comments. Happy to create a video that'll help. All right? Thanks.